You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. We are talking to Dr. Yosef Halbfinger. Dr. Yosef has over 35 years of experience in marriage counseling and family therapy. He's got degrees left and right from his bachelor's from Brooklyn College, his master's from Columbia, and his PhD from Case Western. He's learning. He learns in the morning at Kollel, and he has a private practice in the afternoon. And many of you may know of him because in the back page of Living Jewish, the Chabad weekly piece, he has always a fascinating discussion of a question and an answer of a Jewish family, and he always takes on difficult questions. Dr. Yosef, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be on it.
Listen, so many times in my business as a financial advisor, I see how money is such a big marriage issue. So my guess is that just as much as I work as a marriage counselor, as it were, you probably work on dealing in money. Do you think that money or the lack of it is a common cause of marital disharmony?
I'll tell you the truth. It is with certain groups, and in certain situations, there are certain families and frum families that have to have the family has to buy a house for the newlyweds and provide them with all kinds of things. And in my clientele, actually, the Chabad people, we really don't have that kind of an issue because there is not an expectation that the parents buy a house for the couple. But obviously, it is a big issue. Money is a tremendous issue. If you don't have it, you know what it means, and how to spend it, and how to apportion it, how to make a budget, how to save. All of these things are very big factors. It's not the biggest factor in marriage, but it is a very important factor.
Do you think that couples who have more money or are well off have fewer problems than people who have less money?
No, and I wouldn't say that. I would say they have fewer problems, money problems, but they don't have fewer problems in general. Because sometimes having money, or for one partner to come from a wealthy family and another one not to come from a poor family, can lead to problems. I had one client where the wife was from a impoverished family. The husband was a very wealthy family, and the husband could never come to terms with whether his wife loved him for himself or she loved him for his money, or she stayed with him for his money. And that was it. That was a very big issue.
Is this something people can talk about before they get married, or should be talking about, or just
It would be good if they could. It would be good if people could talk about a lot of things before they get married, and really it's necessary to have some kind of marriage course, because so many people get into marriage and then they're shocked. They don't know what to expect of each other. But it is something that they should talk about. It's something some people come in, especially I wouldn't say today any more women, but people come into marriage sometimes not knowing a thing about how to budget and how to plan and how to use money. And if you talk to them about savings, they look at you blankly. Mm-hmm. Where are they going to save from?
Yeah, well, I certainly see that all the time in my practice, but sometimes I wonder, is it more of a lack of discipline, or is it really some sort of psychological issue, or is it just that that's the way their parents brought them up, not keeping a budget, so many Israelis live in deep in overdraft. In fact, so many Americans too.
Exactly. I think that a lot of times the parents managed everything, gave their kids everything. This is the generation where the parents feel they have to give everything to the kids. And they just never learned, and they never paid attention to it. I had a couple Can I tell you about a few instances, maybe?
Yeah, please do.
A couple where the husband was was quite a bit older than the wife. He was 10 years older. She had never handled money, and he wanted to give her everything, and he ended up giving her a credit card, and she didn't know how to stop using that credit card. He became very angry with her. But he couldn't tell her because he felt if he couldn't give her everything she wanted, he was inadequate. Eventually, they came to the point of divorce. And then they came to see me. We talked about it. And finally, the wife realized that the husband was so upset about how she was spending. She gave him back the credit card, and they lived happily ever after.
Oh, man. Wow. Huh. Well, a lot of people in, let's say, traditional families, the husband really is much more involved in handling the money. So I want to ask you this question. I just want to note for our listeners who are joining us now, we are talking to Dr. Yosef Halbfinger, who writes a weekly column in Living Jewish about family issues. But really what he spends so much of his time is doing family marriage counseling. So, Dr. Yosef, let me ask you, in families where traditionally the husbands are more likely to handle the finances, how does this affect the relationship, especially today when more and more women are getting out into the workforce, and it's perfectly normal for men and women to be equal in the financial world?
Right. And especially if the wife is working and also bringing in money. If the husband can deal with his ego and his arrogance, and be able to accept his wife's needs. Sometimes husbands are shocked by the fact that a wife needs a sheitel that costs a couple of $1,000, that she needs makeup that costs quite a bit. He never understood why does she need all this, and he wants to really keep a lid on the spending, and the wife feels it's unfair. And so on. This can be a very big problem. If the husband cannot see his role as the marriage requires that husband and wife try to make each other happy. Not that they try to get as much as they can, but that husband thinks of his role as doing for his wife, and the wife thinks of her role as doing for the husband. If that happens, then they can manage almost anything. They can get through almost anything, especially if they can talk about it.
What about the case where one of the spouses earns significantly more than the other and feels that he or she is supporting the family to such a great extent, kind of feels owed a little bit? How do you deal with that?
Well, that's often a very big problem in marriage. And the way to deal with it is to be able to try to talk about it. Sometimes I have to see, if it's the husband, for example, have to see the husband privately because he won't be prepared to acknowledge that he's doing anything that might not be best for the family unless he can do that privately. I've had some success with husbands talking, and they turn out to be very, very lonely and insecure, and they can't talk about these things in front of the wife.
Yeah, I actually had a case where the wife had received an inheritance, and she didn't have any real work skills, but that was the only money that she had, or that she felt that she had. And her husband said, "Listen, I've been working our whole marriage to support us, so put that money into the marriage." But she felt that it wasn't such a good marriage, and she was afraid that they would split up. So this was her only defense. So it became very complicated.
Yes, I've seen situations like that, and it's very, very difficult for the couple to think in terms of sharing what comes in and putting it in one pot and using it together. This can be a big problem. The wife feels the little that she has, she's not going to be able to get things that she needs. The husband won't understand, and he won't be receptive to giving her the things she needs.
Would you normally suggest that a couple, especially when they're young, start off with joint bank accounts and right away combine their assets?
I personally would. I think if they're married and if they really want to do what marriage requires and what it entails, they have to share. Unless they have some specific reason why they don't want to do that. I don't know what it could be, but to me, withholding one's money from the pot is sort of not throwing yourself into the marriage completely. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's financially sound, but that's how it seems to me.
Yeah, I guess I've seen a lot of different models, depending also how old people are when they get married, if it's a first or second marriage.
Right.
Oftentimes, if they're second or third marriages and there are children from previous marriages, so then there are obviously other factors at play, right?
Sure. I was talking about a first marriage and a relatively young couple, but absolutely with a second marriage and so on, there by the way, there should be premarital agreement. In fact, I talked to Rav Steinsaltz about that, and he almost routinely makes premarital agreements with couples who are going into their second marriages.
You mean like in order to avoid a get aguna?
Right, in order to avoid problems. There's an understanding what happens if they don't stay together.
Did Rav Steinsaltz also think this applied to first marriages or only to second marriages?
I would say he would do it in the first marriage as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've spoken about that on the show about the issue. It gives everyone it puts everyone on a very fair playing ground. I think when they do that.
Yeah.
We are talking with Dr. Yosef Halbfinger, who is a family therapist, is well known for writing and dealing with very difficult family questions that arise. We're just about out of time, but I just want to ask. Maybe you could leave some words of wisdom for young couples who are getting married or about to get married. What would you suggest they do in order to learn positive spending habits and financial responsibilities?
Every couple that gets married, that's planning to get married, should have Chatan class or a Kala class. You have to have training. Young people do not know how to be in a marriage unless they have some training and education, and that should really include financial management as well. They have to have it, or else they come into it and they're stunned and shocked, and it doesn't go. Mm-hmm. There needs to be premarital counseling, and it should be universal.
I think it sounds like a great idea. I think it's very important. Just tell us, how can people learn more about what you're doing or get in contact with you?
Well, send an email to Living Jewish or call me, 0547-651-287, 0547-651-287. I'll be happy to talk to you.
Great. Dr. Yosef Halbfinger, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you. Very, very enjoyable.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.